Welcome back to the Resupply with me, Guy Next Door.
Me, no laser tag DK.
And me, Fan.
Bringing you your weekly double tap, well, sort of weekly double tap of all things Laserforce and Space Marines.
Quasi-weekly.
Quasi-weekly. I mean,
Quasi-weekly.
We had I think it was a week break between this one and the last pod that we did with Soul. I went away, and shit doesn't get done when I go away. Actually, that's not true. I'm the least productive member of this podcast.
I don't know if that's accurate, but okay.
But we have another guest this week. He's coming on to add coal to the fire that the hype train for next year's Nats run on. See what I did there? That was good.
That was terrible.
we don't add coal around here. We prefer to be carbon neutral.
No,
on
fuck
the
that
resupply.
shit. No. we're all the way fossil fuel burning steam train locomotive motherfuckers. America. But yeah, so this week I would like to introduce one of Auckland's newest, but well, not newest, but you've been around for a little while now, but definitely most productive members, Dmihawk, aka Greg. Hey man, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, bro. Good. You sound as excited as me to be here.
Hey, we're shoveling everything into the engine that can burn. So this hype train is moving and moving fast.
You can tell by how excited we sound. Yeah. So, I mean, you've played, as I sort of mentioned, you've been playing now a couple years, right? How long you play for?
On the regular couple years. I had my first game way back in 01, but that was my 12th birthday party.
Right.
So playing the actual SM5 is probably, I'd say we're coming up 3.5 years now.
Yeah. Do you still have that membership number?
Yes, same one.
Is it the same one? Wow.
Yep.
Fucking cool. Yeah, right on. So, although you've been playing, I say, quote unquote, just a couple of years, you've done quite a bit for Auckland Laserforce in the short time that you've been coming on the regular.
Lucky regular.
Yeah.
Like what, Steve? Explain.
So probably the one thing that comes to mind is the first person videos. You were probably the person that drove those the most, if not they were that was your baby, right?
Yeah, it was. We definitely saw an opening for it there. I mean, with kind of how other forms of, I hesitate to call Laserforce an esport because I know the community would jump at me for calling it that, but the way this whole publicized version of sports that aren't really traditional sports is going, kind of saw an opportunity for that. And there wasn't really anything out there. People have done the whole scoreboard thing in the past, and that's great if you know how to play Space Marines, but if you don't, it doesn't really give you much insight into what's actually happening in the game. So yeah, we jumped on that, and the biggest hurdle we jumped into was the fact that our maze is really dark, and no matter how much you crank a GoPro's ISO settings up, you can't see anything without the house lights on. Nope.
And those videos, for the most part, look really cool. And I think I know of at least Detroit has made them a regular kind of fixture in their foyer, right? They play a few of those videos on a loop, which is really cool.
Those are the
Awesome.
ones that you
Yeah, really
that
cool.
you took in Sacramento in 2017. I recognized them almost
they had
immediately
those?
when I saw them playing. Yeah.
Do they have? I don't suppose they have the blooper one of your game getting shut down.
I wish. Oh, what the fuck?
Oh, Sats, what the fuck?
That game started so good too.
I
Let's
have
show everybody how to play Space
I
Marines.
have that somewhere. Maybe I should cut that especially for you. I'll send that through to you.
Just add it to the list of other DK fails.
Yeah.
There's just so many of them.
There's no shortage, that's for sure.
Yeah, dkfails.com, folks. So that's probably I think the first major thing that you did for the site. But I mean, that's actually probably the very first major thing, because we had a hiatus for about a year and a half, and where we just weren't getting regulars or enough regulars to come and play, and I think just as you started getting into it, that's when things kind of blew up again. So yeah, resurgence.
Yeah, well, it's funny the way that kind of came to be, because I actually ended up, one of my first jobs in the software industry, I ended up working with Sneak. And I remember just coming into the office one day and I could see he had this Laserforce thing up on the screen. I'm like, what are you up to? He's like, I'm watching the Nationals. And I'm like, the what? And so I kind of pressed him for a while, and he kind of, that was basically my intro to SM5. It was must have been Nats 2014, I suspect. And he was watching it. I'm like, oh, cool, man. It's been ages since I played Laserforce. I'll have to get into it. And so Snake introduced me to Trev, and Trev kind of said, yeah, come down for a Lunacy night on a Friday and kind of get back into it. And I loved it. And he's like, we try and play on Tuesday nights for members night, but it's kind of stagnated for a while now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, let me grab this opportunity.
Yeah.
and see what we can do with it. And it's kind of grown to where we can play sort of once a week.
Yeah. Mostly once a week.
And just for those of you that don't have your decoder rings, both Sneak and Trev are Auckland members, obviously. Long-standing Auckland members. Black Snake and Trev, I'm pretty sure, have been there basically since the start of Auckland Lasers. So
also Sneak is my father.
Sneak is definitely an interesting individual, as is Trev for sure. But yeah, we do have to remember, guys, we're not talking just to ourselves. There are people that amazingly don't know everybody that we're talking about, because we've been reaching a new audience lately. We've got Germans listening now. We've got people in Western Australia listening now. So, for those of you that don't have your Laserforce decoder rings, we'll try to make sure people understand where people are when we're referring to them.
Well, look,
I prefer just dropping their names in casually, so that way when people see them up on the screen, they're just like, oh, that's that legendary dude I heard about on that one podcast.
Trev, who's been around since, Laserforce was born. No, maybe not quite that long, but, long enough.
He was the first to get that 20-side achievement or something, right? Or play Laserforce in 5 countries.
Oh, he might have been, actually. I don't know about that. I have to ask
I feel like he was.
Him. He's probably up there in terms of, oldest.
Oh,
regular.
He's definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest reg that I'm aware of, at least in the Australia, New Zealand, and US scenes.
Yeah.
Whether
he's almost
or not
as old as you, Than.
Suck the fattest of dicks. DK.
Okay, so with your kind of first crowning achievement being the videos, it sort of made sense with Auckland hosting next year. It sort of made sense to go to you for to look after the admin, I suppose, or to look after the important stuff for running a tournament. So you'll basically become Auckland's tournament coordinator. That's probably the best way to kind of describe it, right?
Yeah, sounds accurate. Yep.
Yeah. So with you being a coordinator, obviously you're in charge of what exactly? What stuff are you kind of looking after for next year?
So basically everything from what happens on Sunday night right through until the end of competition on Friday. So I'm basically handling all the non-social stuff. So pulling up a team roster for, we may think, up to potentially 12 teams, which presents its own challenges, making sure everyone gets in and out of the arena efficiently. And then there's some stuff happening in the background regarding the telemetry that I'm going to keep a bit of a surprise for maybe early next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I'm sinking most of my time into. I want to change, because this is obviously going to be the first nationals of the new decade, coming into 2020. and I kind of want to set the standard for what tournaments can be going forward. I've seen some great traction. I mean, we had some great commentary coming out of this year's Nats, and then what the guys did for the Aussie titles was really cool. I was really impressed with how the Perth guys did that. But I think we can lift the bar just that little bit higher and kind of set a precedent.
So one of the things that you've sort of been working on, which I think is really cool, because I think a big thing with anyone traveling to a site that hasn't played there before, one of the biggest hurdles is getting to know the arena as quick as possible. And in the past, all we've had to rely on is a top-down schematic at best of an opponent's arena to kind of try and work out, where's best to hold, what, how to move around the maze, etc. But you've taken that to a higher kind of bar.
Yeah, definitely gone up a step from just a top-down map, because the way I look at it, top-down maps, like you say, don't give you an impression of how the arena actually feels.
Yeah.
It sort of shows you where things are, but until you step inside it, you really don't get that sense. So what I've done is I basically went around all of our arena with a tape measure and took some fairly precise measurements of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And I've basically built the arena in a piece of 3D modeling software called Unity. And the result of that is that we now have an application that allows you to walk around our arena in a 3D environment with everything in its right place. The bases are there, all the right walls, the ramps, all the cutouts that you can shoot through. Everything's there, and you play it like you would any other FPS game. So your standard WSA, ASD, keys to move around, and your mouse to look.
It's really fucking cool.
Thanks.
I had a play with it before, and it's crazy to me how accurate it is. Like, it feels like you are in our arena. It's so accurate. What I might do, because you did a walkthrough video, I think, on YouTube. So what I might do is I might cut some of that into the footage on the pod. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, have a look at the footage. Or better yet, we'll post the link up after when we post this pod, so you could download the program.
You could do both.
Yeah, why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
But yeah, so what are some of the like key differences that you've seen in the maze, since probably most people would have been there?
So probably one of the biggest ones is the fact that all of the bases have moved. So previously, green base and red base hung from the ceiling in these sort of pyramid-shaped boxes pretty much directly over the center of the floor area for green and red base. They've now moved. So those who are familiar with our maze and those who will become familiar with our maze through the software, as you enter straight into a maze, you turn left, and just around the corner up on the wall is where green base now lives. Red base isn't far from where it used to be. It's basically just higher up on a wall that overlooks sort of most of the red base area. But I'd say the thing that's changed our arena the most is that blue base is no longer upstairs at all. It's now down in an area of the maze that we call red disco, but it's basically in the back corner. And the biggest thing that we've found that's changed is that attacking upstairs has become significantly more viable, because against a stronger heavy, basically the heavy taps the blue base that was upstairs, and now he's got the reset on you for free. And as long as he doesn't destroy that base, he's just sitting on a free reset target the entire game. And you yourself put a many a missile into me with that strategy, as I learned very quickly and the hard way. And so that's very much changed the dynamic of how the heavy upstairs has had to either rely on his own ammo for resets, or being more careful about kind of when he chooses to take resups, so that he's coming up at the same time as the commander or the scouts.
You're right, though. It has like significantly changed how upstairs is played, even just moving that one base. Upstairs is still by far the better place to hold. But yeah, not having that reset there has made a huge difference.
Sounds a little less broke to me, so I think that's probably a good change on your guys' part.
Yeah,
definitely less broken.
we ummed and ahed about it. I think when they were doing the install, because I think the owners asked, look, do you want the base up there still, or should we move it? And yeah, like we said, well, we'll move it and we'll see how it plays. And whilst it has, whilst it sucks now that I can't reset Missile U, it's definitely made it like better overall. Gameplay's improved overall because of it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever commented on missing it. Certainly in the last 12 months that we've been playing without it. It is still technically a base. In standard game modes, I believe it's purple base. But it works on the same mechanic as the way Brisbane's downstairs bases work, where every 30 seconds or so it switches to a new location in the arena. So it's one of the frustrating ones that people always miss. So I don't think it's actually viable to use as a Space Marine base, because I don't know if that functionality can actually be disabled for where it moves.
Surely.
Interesting.
Surely, maybe.
I think we tried and it just didn't work.
Oh,
so.
really? Well, that makes sense. Right on. So that's probably the bases moving is probably one of the key ones.
Yep.
There were a couple of other ones, yeah.
Yep, so one of the corners of our maze, again, if you've played there before, you'll know it is where Spider used to sit. So here was our warbot. That entire area has actually been closed off. It's been reclaimed from the other side as like a party area space. So basically we've chopped out maybe an eighth of the downstairs area. Hasn't really had much of an effect on SM5 games, to be honest. I haven't noticed its difference, but yeah, so you'll be mindful if you've played here before that there are now solid walls where there used to be doors, and you don't want to go running into them.
I think the only thing that really changed was like...
Hold on, I'm writing that down.
www.dkfails.com. Yeah, the only thing it does really change is hunting at the end of the game. Really, like that was another sort of point of reprieve where teams could kind of go if they needed to flush somewhere, or hide, But yeah.
Yeah, but that works well because it means the hunting is a bit more efficient. So where the elim is kind of inevitable, it just sort of speeds that process up.
Yeah.
A little bit, which sucks for the team being eliminated, but for the team hunting them,
be
just
better.
Sort of brings about the game faster.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah. Right on. So that's that. There's also a new wall in Red Base, which people will be able to see in the program.
Yep.
That
hasn't
wall,
really made much of a difference.
I mean, that will always perplex me, because it's really annoying. But it doesn't add anything, it being there. But it is what it is, I suppose.
It gets in the way of starting the game.
It adds a permanent field construction in the middle of an area.
True.
So there's
but for
pathing things that it messes with.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, not a lot of action kind of happens around that area. Because it's like smack bang in the middle of Red Base, right? So, but you're right, Greg. It adds like a very light sidestep for red team at the start of the game to rush upstairs.
Yeah, the thing I noticed is that as a red commander, you tend to give the heavy the courtesy of going first, now that you kind of both can't leave the starting area in the same direction at the same time.
Yeah.
So you're probably a second or two later out of the gate as a commander, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not the same.
It's not a biggie.
Yeah.
We actually have allocated starting areas now, like marked out allocated starting areas, and we did notice that with those in place, two equally fit people can get upstairs at basically the same time, whereas Red Base did have a slight advantage prior to that. Yeah, right on. So there are some... Is there any other ones that I'm forgetting?
I mean, the doors, I guess, is kind of the last one. Really, the only difference there is that all of the area that we call C-band is basically wide open. There are no doors in place anywhere there. And there's basically, because Spider is now shut off and we've lost that dead end area as well, there's basically no doors in the arena. So everything that can be open sort of is open, and we're not planning to change any of that configuration for Nats.
Okay, then.
It's more or less
No
set
totem
up.
poles.
Yeah, it's more or less set up than how we had it for when we were training for Ballarat and like way back in the day. So it's more or less the same as that.
I mean, honestly, it sounds a lot like St. George's Arena, as far as that goes, where
Right.
there's not really that many places to resupply, and if you get kicked, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Well, at least that'll make it easier with trying to schedule 12 teams.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. You know what? We didn't sort of like all this fucking talk of a hype train, and we didn't even like mention the dates for nationals.
We
You should probably talk to your coordinator about that.
Yeah, good one, Greg.
Dropping the ball.
When is nationals for next year?
July 20th through 24th, 2020, in the 20th year that Laserforce Auckland will be around.
How's that, folks? All them 20s.
Yeah.
Get it.
All the 20s.
Right on. So yeah. So I mean, check out the program because it's really awesome. Drop like one of us a message, me, Greg, Than, maybe even DK, a message if you have any questions about the maze. DK, you haven't played our maze yet, have you?
No, I have not. Thanks for the reminder.
Motherfucker. That's right. Everyone else from Sacramento came, but not you.
Correct.
Useless. So, I mean, do we want to get into the secret thing now, or
The secret thing now. Yeah, if we want, might as well spill the beans. I've been keeping Steve in the dark about something else that I've been working on in the background, because I want it to be as much as of a surprise as possible. But so it's not going to happen for Nats 2020. I don't have enough time between now and July to do it, but I've been looking into how GPS technology is starting to change and how much more accurate it's becoming. And there is an avenue here in combination with 3D models of not just our arena, but potentially other arenas, to have real-time player tracking as part of our general telemetry for Nats. So being able to see where everyone actually is in the arena relative to each other, and to sort of be able to track that in real time.
that's awesome.
To sort of see how the game's
man.
evolving.
So what's
Yes,
funny
yeah,
about
here we come, baby.
what's also funny about that is that, I mean, that is an idea that has been kicked around since really the late 90s. That there were actually some people in Sacramento that were kicking around how to do that, but obviously, technology that then to now is a little different. And it was just it was never something that really got kind of past the initial idea, hey, wouldn't this be cool stage, because when people started looking into it at the time, it was like, yeah, there is just no fucking way that this is going to happen with any sort of reasonable cost and or development time. Mostly cost. I think that there was stuff out there that could do it, but it was all hideously expensive at that point. Now here we are 20 years later, and potentially it's something that might actually be realistically within scope. It's kind of interesting living in the future.
We didn't get flying cars, but we're getting improved laser force, so I'll count that as a win.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'll take the
that.
Laserforce over the flying cars
Fuck
every day.
yeah.
I mean, people can't even drive fucking right on the ground over here. I'm not letting them into the sky.
So that's really interesting because it being real time, I mean, from a spectator point of view, that's huge.
Yep.
Because I mean, like people really enjoyed, like as you said, people really enjoyed the commentary last year, but being able to actually track on a map, people attacking a resupply or people getting flushed or what people do during a nuke, like that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I've got some prototypes going around at the moment. Nothing I'm kind of ready to release yet, but kind of from what I've been seeing so far, I like how it's looking and I like where it's developing. So once we confirm who's going to host 2021 Nats, I might start having early conversations with their tournament host and seeing if they're open to this kind of idea. And it may come into play. If not 2021, then that's cool. I'll wait till someone hosts it who's willing to kind of to float this idea and see how it goes. Well,
so there are rumors for that, right?
Was it St. George rumored to host 21?
There's always rumors, and quite honestly, until we deal with the one that's in front of us, everything beyond that is really speculative. I mean, we had the Germans come to St. George for West Coast a couple of months ago. They've actually made some noises about wanting to host a tournament and get some of us there.
I'd travel to Germany. That'd be dope.
It'd be awesome.
St. George, has kind of put their hands up as, hey, this would be cool because they've never hosted Nats. I feel like Sanch would probably end up putting his hand up again to have it in Syracuse. And
it's true, since they haven't had a national since 2011.
Oh, very true, 100% accurate.
Yep.
And there is the Syracuse angle, and I'm totally putting words in people's mouths right now, is intriguing for the idea that you have, Greg, in as much as because Sanch is so pro player, we definitely get a very good run of his facility whenever we're there for whatever event. So doing the mapping thing in his arena, I could see him being very open to, with the added advantage of it's a single story arena, which simplifies. I would have to guess simplifies the tracking of it, because you're only having to track in a two-dimensional or in a single level space as opposed to a multi-level space.
Yeah, multi-level definitely is more of a challenge. Not impossible, just more of a challenge.
So I'm curious as to, I mean, obviously you don't want to fully disclose everything that you're working on, but how are you going about trying to get essentially the geolocation of players inside an enclosed arena, where obviously there is no GPS line of sight to in the sky?
Right, so I use the term GPS very loosely because I assume that's how most people will be able to understand it, but there's spatial tracking, basically hardware combined with software that can be used in an indoor environment, and it's being kind of tested. It's more of a warehouse technology at the moment. It's designed to deal with tracking like shipping containers and where stuff is stored, and when you've got these huge warehouses full of like millions of items. I think Amazon have something similar to it, so it's not true GPS in terms of using the GPS satellites.
So would it be fair to say it's more like a combination of Wi-Fi / RFID / that sort of
thing. We've got to be real careful with using RFID though, because that's what the Laserforce system runs on, and if we interfere with that, then no one's going to care about tracking.
Pretty much. That was yeah.
But see, at least this way we can use the powers for good instead of turning all our workers into peons like Amazon does. This way we can actually use technology for something good.
Yeah. I mean, like, as long as I don't have to get microchipped, I'm all in.
Yeah, take that, Bezos.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'd be chipping the suits, not the players. Although the players would be an interesting idea.
No, hard
No,
pass.
that's a terrible idea.
In fairness, if I didn't have to take my card everywhere and I could just swipe my hand over my vest, I would probably consider chipping myself.
Ooh, actually, that's not a bad point. If I could high five my suit.
That's a terrible idea. Both of
Also,
you
don't
know
tell
it.
Than anything else. He's going to steal it for Evil Corp and give it to his bosses.
Yeah, no, it's not really much worry about that. I'm nowhere near senior enough to hand ideas like that off.
They're already spying on us right now anyway. It doesn't
Yeah, that's
matter.
right.
Pretty much.
So we talked about it, like, I think you'd mentioned it when you'd first made some of the videos for YouTube, being able to have a heads-up display map, right, and be able to sort of track whereabouts in the maze that player was. I would imagine that would make that significantly easier to do.
Yeah, it would, and allow us to do it in 3D, which makes so much more difference.
Yeah.
When you're trying to understand what people are doing on attacking runs and where they're resetting to.
Could you theoretically combine that with the program that you made of the 3D maze and do like full replays of a game that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And the intent was to combine the two together, because you've already built the 3D map up. Now so you just need to put the data into that 3D map to show where everything is on screen.
Man, that's cool.
I'm just imagining like poorly rendered Polygon Steve wandering around the maze.
It'd just be like an egg, a floaty egg.
Yeah, so I should have the caveat that with the software that will go out when the pod goes up, I'm not a designer. I'm a programmer by trade, so it will look very bland. I think the bases, if you're going to look at them, is probably about as artistic I get. So if there is anyone out there listening to the pod who is part of the community and has any skills with Blender or Maya or 3ds Max or any of the 3D modeling softwares and is happy to spend some free time maybe making it look a bit prettier, please talk to me. I'd be happy to throw beers your way or whatever else we can provide if you're coming down in 2020.
Yeah, we could even send you some photos of how our maze kind of looks now, so you could use that as some sort of inspiration. Oh, that's really cool, man. Like I'm super impressed with what you've built, and like I can't wait to see like the stuff that's coming for Nats. We're gonna probably have another catch up
for sure
in the new year once we kind of have more of an idea of who's actually coming, and when stuff has been kind of tested and working. I suppose we can sort of let people in a bit more of what's happening behind the scenes. Did you guys want to ask anything, or do you want to add anything else?
I feel like most of the pieces on this are gonna really start resolving after New Year's once people actually start buying tickets.
Yeah.
And that's that'll be the point at which we start really going through the scheduling and shit like that. I mean, right now it's just I don't think it's close enough to warrant really having a in-depth discussion on that yet.
Sure.
That'll probably make me feel more hyped when it starts getting a little bit more real, because I'm just getting beaten down with work right now and not having a chance to play laser tag lately. I'm just feeling a little fried. So the closer we get to actual tournament time, the better it'll be for me.
Do you get a break over like Christmas and New Year's where you can travel?
Oh yeah, it's coming
not
up
so
pretty
much?
quick. It's just I'd like to be able to play some lasers sometime here in the near future.
Are you going to ECT?
No, it is unfortunately scheduled at like the worst possible time for my semester coming up in the spring. If
Right.
they moved it like 2 days to either side, I would probably be in. But as it stands, nah.
God damn it. Thanks,
Yeah,
Beans.
And unfortunately, I'm out. I'm out also. Between the replacing the gutters on my house and then finding out what Julie's CPAP machine is gonna cost, like, well, that's, the money that her CPAP was gonna cost was kind of what I was thinking might be able to be used for ECT.
So what a great pair to host a laser tag podcast who never play laser tag.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have a short break over the Christmas period, I believe. I think Auckland will close down for 3 or 4 weeks, but then hopefully we'll be back into some training and it'll be fun Laser Force times ahead. Hopefully.
I mean, that implies that people are dedicated enough to show up to practice.
True. It's funny you should mention that.
Yeah, Steve, where's your team?
That's a good question. Captain Steve is disappointed, but maybe it's me. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I haven't put enough pressure / hype on the greatness that is Laser Force Internationals 2020.
Maybe you're a better vice captain than a captain.
Yeah, we're missing a Than.
Shots fired.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Shots retracted.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the new year. We're gonna have some stern words with a couple of people, useless motherfuckers. But yeah, thanks, Gru, for coming on and fucking giving us a wee insight into what's going on behind the scenes.
All good. Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. Cool.
We are definitely excited.
Fuck yeah, man! Like, just everyone jump on that, like, download the program and have a buzz. Like, it's really cool. It's really cool. Hype. Anyway, for this week, I've been Guy Next Door.
I've been DK. # Hong Kong. # fuck Bezos.
And I've been Than.
Always remember to backtrack, kids. We'll see you next week.